Welcome to another episode of Beyond Physical, where we talk about the mental, emotional, social, and at times spiritual benefits of exercise. We believe that exercise is more than movement, and this podcast is our attempt at sharing that message with the world by sharing our own as well as our guests' experiences and knowledge. If you enjoy it, we ask that you please spread the message by leaving a rating and review, or even better, by sharing with a friend. For the first time in almost 5 years, I'm stepping away from a personal fitness goal, and today I'm going to tell you why, and I'm going to explain a little bit about the benefits of that experience and when to walk away from something, when to pursue something, when to push, when to dial it back, and how that fits into life, work, fitness, and everything around those various topics. So, to add a little bit of context, if this is your first time listening to Beyond Physical, exercise for me is something that transcends merely using one's body. It is not just about pushing your body and improving your body physically and taking your performance to another level. It's about what we can leverage about that specific practice, mentally, spiritually, emotionally, how it improves your life outside of just the physical, hence the name Beyond Physical. So this is a beautifully fitting topic for this podcast, and I'd love to share a little bit about how I grappled with walking away from my main physical goal for the year and why I did that. So I decided to can the sub 250 marathon attempt, and the reason why is because the way that I was relating to my exercise indicated that I wasn't where I wanted to be in terms of my attitude and my relationship with exercise. So, why and what does exercise usually mean to me? So, what exercise usually means to me is a break away from things. It's a way to focus on something that isn't the day to day ABC of work, of relationships, of whatever it may be. It's literally just me moving my body, getting a little bit of headspace, pushing myself, feeling uncomfortable in a controlled environment, and really just cleansing myself and flushing out any sort of residual weirdness I might have that has come from other areas of my life. Exercise really allows me to kind of detox from this and create some space purely for myself. It's why I love long days out on the mountain. It's why I love really difficult lifting sessions in the gym. It's why I love going for a progression run out on the road. I do not love that, but afterwards I feel good because I know the headspace that I got from it was really unique and really needed. And it's generally something that I look forward to. I'm very much aware that because of the level to which I choose to take my exercise, being trying a sub 3 marathon, running a 100 miler, a bench press PR, the things that I like to work towards, of course, there are going to be days in your training that are quite unpleasant. And that's absolutely fine. And that's part of the benefit is exposing yourself to something that you don't necessarily feel like doing in that moment, but afterwards you feel accomplished having done it. But, and a big but, for me, I still want to enjoy 7 out of 10, 8 out of 10, maybe even 9 out of 10 workouts. I don't want to have a negative feeling towards my training. And that is something to a large degree, which is in our control. However, when you start moving into the world of maybe overtraining, or you are mentally or kind of hormonally in a bit of an imbalance, you can start to find consecutive workouts feeling like a drag, dreading those workouts, finding excuses not to do those workouts on a consistent basis. And this is quite normal. But for somebody like me who is as connected to exercise as I am and enjoys pushing my body as much as I do, it's not normal. And it definitely indicates that I need to reevaluate the approach. And that's the conclusion that I came to, which is things are getting busy at Horizon. things are getting busy with my studies. It's my last module to complete my postgrad. It's a push. There's obviously pressure around that. I don't want to drop the ball there. It's 2 years in the making. I've got to just tick that box. And exercise is not feeling what it usually feels like, which is it feels like a breakaway. It feels more like another task to get done. And I didn't like that feeling. And I gave it a couple of weeks. I gave it a few weeks, actually. It was probably over a month that I felt like I was not experiencing exercise the way I usually do. And it's very important to have that reflection. It's very important to identify a challenge when it comes to physical, mental, whatever it may be, but in this case, physical, and go, is this temporary discomfort, which is a normal part of doing difficult things and stretching yourself, or is this the manifestation of chronic fatigue, burnout, too much, time to reevaluate, whatever it may be, which is where I eventually got over the period of X number of months where I realized, look, I'm usually at a 9 out of 10 in terms of enjoying my workouts. I've dropped to an 8, to a 7, to a 6. That's still okay. 5, okay, fine, let's keep going. All right, now I'm at like a 4. And eventually what I got to was a 1, where it was 1 out of 10 workouts I was actually looking forward to. And that was my sign. So why did this happen? How did this happen? How did I let this happen? Being experienced in exercise, I've got well over a decade of experience in high performance environments, in recreational training, in ultra marathons, in marathons, in you name it. I've coached tens, if not hundreds, of different clients and helped them connect with exercise in a healthy, sustainable way. So how did I get to the point where I wasn't feeling connected to my exercise in a healthy and sustainable way? Well, I will tell you, and it's got to do with something that I call rest cadence, and that is basically just a fancy word for your protocol around rest and how often you rest. And for me, as most of the close people to me will know, I like to do things fully, I like to do things hard, and I like to do things sometimes in excess of what is determined or considered to be the normal kind of degree to which one takes something. In other words, I don't want to just run a marathon, I want to run a sub 250 marathon. I don't want to just run an ultra, I want to run a 100-miler through the night and feel sleep deprivation and hallucinate because of that. And I don't want to just bench press the average male's kind of range of what is considered healthy and strong. I want to bench press in the top 1 percentile. And that's just because I find that the fun is usually in the margins, as in far off what is normal. It's taking it to the extreme. And so how that filtered out into my exercise goals is that I would do a hard prep for maybe 4 to 6 months, and then I would have nothing in the calendar for at least 2 months. I would train when I liked, I would do what I liked, I would eat what I liked for the most part. And that worked for me. But last year, I approached things a little bit differently. And how that looked was, it was a massive start to the year for me personally. I started the year off with a second attempt at a sub 3 hour marathon. I had a go at the end of 2023 at Cape Town Marathon to run sub 3. I bonked, I ran 3:07. Came back at the end of Jan, beginning of Feb 2024 to give it another go at Kango Caves Marathon. Managed to make the sub 3 at about 2 hours 58 and a half minutes. That was an awesome experience. Tick that box. That was massive. That was probably the hardest thing I've done. 3 months later, 4 months later, I think it was 4 months later because it was May, January, February, March, April. So it was 3-ish months, 3 and a bit months later, I embarked on the 100-miler, which was so amazing. And thank you so much to everyone who donated for that, by the way. Jason and I were very, very happy about that fundraise. And in any case, tick that box. Managed to do the 100-miler, 37 hours out in the mountains through the night. And that was a pretty spiritual experience. But after that, I was like, okay, cool. big start to the year. Let me just take it easy. Now, usually, like I said, what would happen is I would take a 2 month period where I did pretty much nothing. I had nothing in the calendar. I had no specific goal. The idea was just to decompress, because when I prep hard. I weigh my food, I track my meals, I weigh myself, I lift meticulously, I run meticulously, I make sure that every split is hit on every workout. It's very rare that I miss a single thing, and I like to do it like that, and I love being dialed in, and it's fun. And that's oftentimes also why I train by myself, because I don't like to tamper with my specific plan. But anyway, that aside, the point being, I go all in on a prep. So it's very helpful for me to decompress by not thinking of any events in the near future thereafter, and just giving myself a little bit of breathing room. But what I did differently last year was my resting approach changed, because I thought to myself, I'm going to do what I want, but I'm going to allow this to manifest in doing whatever events I want. Because often what I'd find during a prep, I'd be invited to do a certain event. I'd say, no, I'm in prep. And sometimes that would be a little bit of a bummer. So I thought, okay, for these next 6 months following the 100 miler and the sub 3 hour marathon from 3 months prior, I'm just going to do whichever events I liked. So I booked in the Neisner Marathon, which was about a month after the 100 miler. I did a double high rocks back to back with Claire, which was like another 2 months after that, where I did the doubles with Claire, and then I did the men's pro singles a couple of hours later. Then I did the Cape Town Marathon double, where I did the trail marathon on the Saturday, and then the road marathon on the Sunday. Those were back to back, and then I did the UTCT 55K with Claire. And for me, it was fun. It was amazing. I enjoyed it. It was physically pretty demanding, of course. I ended up doing, I don't know what that equates to, maybe 8 events or something. Doesn't really matter. A lot of events, all endurance focused. So, of course, it was physically taxing. But what I didn't consider was that the fact that I was putting events in the calendar, even though I wasn't training for these events, I mean, I did a little bit of training for the Cape Town Marathon double, but not much, particularly by my standard. The the mental impact of having these events in the calendar did not allow me sufficient decompression and rest. I couldn't actually fully switch off and say to myself, there's nothing in the calendar, there's nothing we're working towards. Let's take a nice full rest. I always had this little inkling in my mind that there was an event on the horizon. And that came to bite me, I feel, over the last 2-3 months. And it was a really important lesson for me, because it showed me that the way that one rests is incredibly important. And if you have a protocol that works, you've got to honor that protocol. And I mean, there are lots of recreational athletes, I would consider myself quite recreational as well, who do tons of events and they never get burnt out and they love it. But that doesn't work for me, because I think the intensity with which I prep requires singular myopic focus on the specific event and then long periods of rest thereafter. And that's an incredibly useful insight. So I'm walking away from the sub 250 and I'm just taking it as it comes. I want something new. I want something fresh. I want to feel rejuvenated in terms of the way that I relate to my exercise. And I'm trying a couple new things. I'm embarking on 75 hard. Excuse me. Just from a little bit of a mental challenge point of view. I like things like that, and it doesn't feel like a goal. It just feels like a daily thing. Doing your 45-minute workout outside and inside, and drinking your gallon of water and reading your 10 pages. It feels like a fun little challenge. And for the last 2 weeks, I've been taking it very easy. It was my birthday recently. I kind of had a couple of drinks. I had a few late nights, as one does, I suppose. And I allowed that because it felt like that was needed in order for me to decompress mentally, to remove some of the structure and the way that I usually go about my day-to-day life. And now I'm ready to dial in, at least from a lifestyle point of view. And that was the plan. The plan was give myself 2 weeks to be a little bit loose, and then the week after my birthday to start 75 hard. And then after 75 hard, who knows? I mean, I've played with the idea of maybe doing a 100 mile at the end of the year, but I'm not booking that in. I'm not buying my ticket. I'm not committing to it in any way. I've paused things with Brendan, and I'm just leaving it open at the moment because I want to develop that itch again. I want to feel compelled to do an event. I don't want to feel obligated to do an event. And I think that is an incredibly important insight for me and my relationship with exercise is, there are some people who do it because they need the discipline and they need the structure. And for me, I do consider to some degree that important. However, I have that discipline and that structure in other areas of my life with Horizon, with the way I watch my nutrition. And exercise, when it is not surrounding a specific goal, for me must be a free thing. It must be something it revolves around scratching an itch around a curiosity you might have about a certain type of exercise, about a certain goal, about a certain milestone. It's like, ooh, what might that feel like? What does it take to get to that point? Okay, cool, I'm going to do that because I'm genuinely curious. And that was another thing around the sub 250 is that I didn't feel like I had a sufficient why. And for me, I found that to be very, very important. And it's something that I ask my clients if I'm onboarding a new client, which is rare nowadays, but it's something that I ask my clients the first time I meet with them is, so you tell me that you want to gain 5 kilograms, or you tell me that you want to get stronger, or you tell me that you want to drop a little bit of weight. Why? They'll say, because I want to be healthier. And then I say, but why? And they'll say, because being healthier is better. And I'll say, but why do you want that improved version of yourself? What about your life now and how your physical element of your life is contributing to your current life? What about that now are you dissatisfied with and you think that being healthier would kind of alleviate? Then they'd say, I'd be able to, at the drop of a hat, go hike the mountain with my son. Okay, cool. So this is about spending more time with the people that you love and you want more freedom to do that. Absolutely. Okay, cool. Now when Grant or Garth or Michael, I'm just dropping out random names here, wants to move towards a goal and they start to feel the natural hurdles, feeling a little bit tired, which is fine, but you got to push. Feeling like there are a bunch of social things coming up, which is fine, but you can't do all of them because you've got a specific goal in mind. And if you don't get enough sleep, you're going to become more susceptible to injury. And if you get injured, that's going to affect our consistency. And if you're not consistent, then we're not going to reach our goal. And that's when you bring the thing up of, remember, you shared that what's important to you is you want to be freer to spend more time with your loved ones. And you feel like that manifests through being stronger or through being lighter or whatever it was for you. But anyway, point being that the why is so incredibly important. And I didn't honor that specific notion for myself. And then I saw that the stickiness of my goal eroded. It wasn't quite there. And this is all amazing feedback and all really useful introspection that happened as a result of dropping this goal. And I think for me, why it has provoked so much thought is because I am typically quite stubborn around goals. As I said, with the sub 3 hour marathon, I went for it in November or October or whenever Cape Town Marathon is. And then I thought, shit, I missed it. I've got to give it another go. So we went for it again in Jan and we got it. And it's like, I feel like a dog with a bone. It's like, I'm not going to let that thing go until I get it. But right now, the why around the sub 250 marathon is not there for me. And that's completely fine. And knowing when to course correct and when to adjust is incredibly important. And if you want to learn a little bit more about that, I would suggest looking at Angela Duckworth's Grit. It's a very popular book for business leaders and for parents and for anyone looking to improve themselves and to help those around them be the best versions of themselves. But her whole thesis is around understanding why some people stick to things and excel at things whilst others do not, and when to stick to things and when to drop them. And a big part of her argument is to understand your goal hierarchy and understand what is your overriding life's task or your life's vision. Whereas for me, mine is to help improve people's lives holistically using physical movement or strength training as my vessel. And then there are multiple different contingent or sub parts to that goal. Maybe one is getting a business degree, maybe another is getting a coaching cert, maybe another is, I don't know, growing a social media presence, and all these things that shoot off of that then have a number of other component parts underneath them. Anyway, long story short being, if you find that a specific task you're working towards is no longer supporting your overriding life's task, then it's okay to drop it by the wayside because you're still on the path to where you need to be. And maybe the specific thing you're working towards, in my case, the sub 250, is actually taking away from what your overriding goal is. And for me at the moment, Horizon has started to gain momentum for the first time in almost 3 years. We are into the third year now. We've eclipsed, I think, 2.5 years, definitely, which is still a very young business, but we've just started to see what it feels like to have a little bit of wiggle room, to have a little bit more freedom with what we allocate our resources towards, not pinching pennies every month. And that's a totally different feeling. And that validates the mission and the vision all the more because it means that it's not only something for me to serve other people on a local level, but it's something that we could probably do long term. And it's shown that it is viable, which is at the beginning not something I was sure of. I did it because I thought I love this industry. I love helping people. I know that I enjoy exercise myself, and I feel like opening a gym is the best way I know to serve as many people as I possibly could face to face in this industry. Whether or not it was financially viable was completely secondary. It wasn't something that was top of mind for me. And now, of course, that we have a team of 8, 9 people, and there's obviously a responsibility attached to that. It's a lot more at the forefront of my mind to make this thing sustainable. And once you do get a little bit of a taste of, oh wow, this actually can work. This is not just something that fulfills me and really scratches the passion itch, but also has legs and can help support a whole bunch of livelihoods for a long period of time and indefinitely if you plan it correctly and execute properly, then I'm like, okay, now I'm actually going to work. And it's funny because I did work incredibly hard for the last 2.5 years, at least I think so. But I'd say I'm working harder than ever now. I'm devoting more thought, more time, more effort to Horizon than I ever have previously because I've seen the little bit of momentum. And that's what's really interesting. And it's the paradox of progress. And it's the same in training. It's you work, you work, you work, you work, you work, you don't see much progress. You work, you work, you work, you work, you work, you don't see much progress. You work, you work, you work, you see a little bit of progress. Ooh, that's quite cool. All the work that I've been doing has not been for nothing. There actually is some sort of payback, whether it's in terms of, oh, I feel a bit stronger. I feel like noticeably my body composition has changed. And, maybe we have a little bit of money left over at the end of the month. Oh, that's cool. It's like these decisions that we make on a consistent basis are having some sort of return. And that's when you start to double down because you see momentum and you see, oh, this thing is working. Oh, this thing can work. Oh, this work I'm putting in is worth my while. I am feeling better. I am feeling more mobile. I am feeling stronger. Okay, let's keep it going. Now let's drop the hammer. Let's lean into this. I've got proof of concept. Let's roll, And that is what I think on a very micro level has happened for me behaviorally with Horizon. And Horizon ultimately is for me right now the most supportive thing towards my life's task, and why I felt very comfortable to reallocate my time, resources that way, as opposed to a very time consuming prep that I didn't actually feel so connected to. So the paradox of progress is quite an interesting thing, where you think when you start to progress, maybe you'll slow down. No, when you start to progress is when you start to drop the hammer big time. And I also actually watched something earlier today on Instagram about the hedonic treadmill, and it's part of my research actually for this this episode. So it was cool when it came up, which is a study by Brickman and Campbell from 1971. And researchers found that we adapt quickly to quote unquote success. And then we just want more. We set new baselines. And this, I think, is very similar to the paradox of progress, or it ties into the paradox of progress, because what happens is you make some progress, and then the point to which you have progressed to becomes your baseline. And because you're in this mindset of working towards improvement, you readjust the goalposts shift. And it's remarkable because it helps you keep progressing, but if you're not aware of it, then you can kind of get sucked into a cycle of endless work. But we won't go down that hole, because that's not what it is right now. But that being said, I am very excited to announce that I've started rolling. I've started a little bit of jiu-jitsu. Who knows what's going to come of that? That's exciting for me because I have spoken regularly over the last couple of years about the importance of being on the floor more as a form of movement. Most of my movement is on my 2 feet. Very little is on the floor. And I've honestly missed contact sports. I've missed rugby tremendously, and I do miss it, but the risk factor due to the impact around the sport is something that I can't really justify. And I have had 4 serious concussions, probably more than that. So I've never gone back seriously since I stopped. And my old roommate was on at me for months to start jiu-jitsu, and I never bit. I never went for it. And then old Chad, who's joined us at the gym, great guy, Mr. Chad, he does jiu-jitsu, did it a bit as a kid and has started recently again now. He's been doing it for the last 7 months or so, and he's been mentioning it, and he trains at a gym that belongs to a friend of mine, who actually was part of the reason why I opened this gym. But anyway, story for another day. Long story short, after stepping away from my sub 250 goal, I thought, you know what, I'm going to learn something new. And so I went to my first beginner class, and it was honestly amazing. I loved it. It was a great sweat. There was a lot of thinking. I was fully present, and it was just something fresh and different. And I think that's exactly what I need. So I will keep you guys updated with that. Knowing me, I might end up wanting to compete, but there's no pressure around it. But let's see what happens. I think it's going to be an awesome journey. But if I can just circle back to exercise as a philosophy and what I believe exercise should be, and why I decided to course correct, and what you could maybe do with that point and implement in your own life, is I see exercise as something that transcends just the physical. It's about rejuvenating and refreshing your mind. It's about cleansing yourself. It's about really just disconnecting from day-to-day life, exposing yourself to something difficult, something that has inertia associated with it. So getting started on a micro level every day that is within a controlled environment. And I think that is incredibly healthy. I think there needs to be a why attached to it, because it's something that in order for it to be effective, you want to do consistently. And if you want to build consistency, it's important that there is a why. And I lost connection to this around the sub 250, and I found my why pulling me in a different direction, which is to build more around Horizon, to lean more into Horizon. And there's a lot of exciting stuff happening there. And that's what I found happening for the first time ever is I would be about to go out for a work and I was like, let me just jump on my laptop for a little bit. Let me work on this proposal or this X or this Y. And I thought, you know what, lean into what's natural. That's what's feeling natural. Of course I still want to train. Of course I still want to go for a walk. Of course I still want to be outside. But right now, what I want to do more is build Horizon. And because it felt more and it feels more aligned with my why at the moment. So it's okay to course correct. It's okay to break what you might have defined for yourself as a bit of an identity over the last half a decade or however long, and to honor what feels natural. Um, and I think it's important that you listen to cues. You know, there's a time to push and there's a time to dial it back. You know, if you feel a little bit uncomfortable about getting up and it's because it's dark and go and run, like it's, you know, safety aside, of course, you must consider safety. But if it's cold outside or it's raining, it's like, as Aaron van Aysen would say, well, waterproof, just go and run. Like it's not that big of a deal. But if every day and every workout and every moment you're dreading your workout, then maybe just reflect on what it is that you want to get out of your training. And are you getting that out of your training? Because why are you dreading this thing if there's supposed to be some sort of benefit for you? Anyway, remember to remain connected with your why. Remember to exercise your rest cadence in accordance with what works for you. And if you don't know what works for you, try until you do. Try and figure it out. Trial and error. This game of exercise that we're playing is very subjective. There are general best practices, of course, but what's going to work for you specifically is going to vary for what works for me. You know, I like to go hard, so I'll work hard for 3, 4, 5 months, do an event, rest for 2 months. You know, other people take it easy and just train the whole year, and that works for them, and that's perfectly fine. But other than that, I hope that you are enjoying your exercise. And if you're not, please reach out, chat to me. I'm so happy to talk about how to help you figure out a way that is meaningful for you to connect to exercise, because I think that is ultimately, at the end of the day, what our message at Horizon is, and what my personal message is I want to help people redefine their relationships with exercise and with strength training if it's not one that's working for them, because I believe that for every person there is a benefit in strength training, there is a benefit in exercise. And if you are struggling to build consistency around those habits, I think that I can help you, or I can offer some insight around how you could do that. And that's just going to be a chat, that's just going to be a text or a whatever it may be. By the way, also, sorry, this is not my platform specifically, but so that you all know, I'm no longer taking on any clients. I'm not taking on online clients. I'm not taking on in-person clients. I'm not, and from May, I'm actually phasing out completely all of my existing clients. So not only am I taking on no new clients, but I'm also then quote unquote retiring from coaching. And that is just aligned with what I said around my overarching life's goal. And I think that I have more impact pulling the strings behind the scenes at Horizon as opposed to being on the floor. I will still, of course, be at the gym very regularly. I love hanging out with you guys, but I think there's more value for me behind the scenes. But that being said, the reason I brought that up is because I'm not trying to sell you anything. Just text me. I'll talk to you. I'll guide you where I can. I'll respond where I can. It really is what I love to do. I really do love, quote unquote, preaching the gospel of exercise, because it's had such a profound impact on my life. It's brought so many beautiful relationships into my life, and it's helped me through many a difficult experience. So I want that for you. I want to share that with you. And yeah, if you got any questions, if you're struggling to define your why around exercise, if you're going through a little period of burnout, if you're not sure about your rest cadence and you just want to bounce some ideas, I'm happy to do that. Maybe you also bring some new insight for me, which I'm sure you will. So, thank you for listening. I'll catch you in the next episode. And remember, you only perform as well as you recover. So take it easy, connect with that why, and keep moving. Thanks so much. Thank you so much for listening to the show, guys. We love answering specific questions. So if there's anything you want to know, leave a comment or reach out to us directly at HorizonZA on Instagram or email us at movement@horizongym.com. Until next time, I'm your host, Seb Prentice, and this is Beyond Physical.